Okay, everyone has some sort of implicit philosophy, especially true of the artist, who is naturally more in touch with his inner self. Okay, far from being a Palmtech, Robert Howard was able to inject some of his philosophical beliefs into even his most imaginative piece of fiction. Okay. So what do I say? Many authors' works ideas sneak unconsciously into their work, but Howard's are especially worthy of mention because of their consistency. Howard had no formal training in philosophy, so there are bound to be some lapses in logic. Taking this into account, however, Howard's overall philosophy hangs together pretty well. And this, and years later, I actually discovered that actually Howard was like pretty well read in philosophy, but that's something I could not have known at the time. He mentions in his letters, I think it was to Tevis Clyde Smith, like he was familiar with like Santayana and like a number of other writers, philosophers. Okay. Okay, I mentioned that existentialism first was known as America after like John Paul Sartre's essay "Being and Nothingness," which he actually coined the term existentialism. And I say here, a thing's essence is what it is. Its intrinsic nature or purpose. The thing it does exclusively or does best. And I mentioned like a knife can be used to prop open a window, but it's not a specific purpose. It was designed to cut things. And then I go on to mention what I mentioned before, that humanity struggling will ultimately come to naught. The universe just spins on, ignoring us. And I don't know if I mentioned here or elsewhere, but like the clearest statement of Conan's philosophy is what he says to Belit in The Queen of the Black Coast. Let others brood about questions of meaning and philosophy and this and that. I live, I love, I slay, I am content. Because after a certain point, it's like sort of like chewing a bone. You can just drive yourself nuts, grappling with these conundrums. And we have to remember that like Howard was like a very young writer. He was only 30 when he died, and he started like Conan 4 years earlier when he was like 26. And at that age, like a person is like struck with and fascinated by all sorts of like ideas that he encounters. So he did have like a very like philosophical bent, in his attitude towards life. Okay. Oh, there it is, Queen of the Black Coast. There's no hope here or hereafter in the cult of my people, answered Conan. In this world, men suffer and struggle vainly, finding pleasure only in the bright madness of battle. Dying, their souls enter a gray, misty realm of clouds and icy winds to wander cheerlessly throughout eternity. Okay, their chief is Crom. He dwells on a great mountain. What he used to call on him. Little he cares if men or live or die. Better to be silent than call his attention to you. He will send you dooms, not fortune. He is grim and loveless, but at birth he breathed power to strive and slay into a man's soul. What else shall men ask of the gods? And I sort of go on to mention that Howard has the knack of making Conan's like personal goal or ambition, whether it's like finding treasure to get ahead or, become chief of the bandits of the pirates. He makes that as important to the reader, as if it were like just some sort of, grand or noble quest. He's just he's just a man trying to get through life, but he's trying to do it very well. He's not just trying to like survive. He's like, hoping to prevail, and that's, what he does. And he's often faced with like terrible, incredible odds. as all of us are. The world does not care about you, at all. And it's something people learn, when they become adults and get out there. It's because you grow up in like the bosom of your family or a small community, and it shelters you in a sense. But you go looking for a job, and it's just very, very hard to make your way in the world. And to Lovecraft, that was who had like a very hard life and a very hard time, because he was originally like very sheltered, and then was like just thrust out in the world with no resources as an adult. And to him, horror was like a universe that was like indifferent to his problems. And that, I think, is like why he created, deities like Cthulhu. It's like something I mentioned at, Mythos his Lovecraft's personification of chaos makes it easier to deal with. If you can view chaos as like Cthulhu or Yog-Sothoth or something, in reality, chaos is when you slip and fall in a bathtub and die merely because you happen to place your foot here instead of there. That's real chaos as it exists in the real world. And it's awful, and it's terrible, and it's horrifying, but it's not awesome. In creating like something like Cthulhu or Yog-Sothoth as an agent of chaos, I think that's like Lovecraft's way of saying, okay, you I can accept it from. And interestingly, Lovecraft referred to his own work as artificial mythology and Howard's work as artificial legendary. Mythology involves gods, legends involve heroes. And in Howard's artificial legendary, you have like the hero Conan, who's capable of coping with this chaotic universe and all these horrific fantasy sorts of manifestations. It's as though Howard too grasped that, like, the world, the universe, was like essentially hostile, and and as we know, because he ultimately took his own life, that he must have experienced like a great deal of despair, which he, probably found like overwhelming at times. So in creating Conan, like, like he was, it's as though he's thinking like, okay, maybe I can't deal with this horror show, but I'll create someone who can. And I think that's like, the essence of Conan, like just a hero who's like capable of like dealing with the horrors of this life. Because I happen to share that same like sort of bleak view. Like I'm a nice guy, but it's really not how I see the world. And it's like, and I've often had like a tendency to like bum people out, like, and I would have to say like, like I just get to talking and like, I think, oh, gee, I'm not bumming you out, am I? But I think you have to like note a difference between existentialism and nihilism. Nihilism is just like the big no. It's just like forget it, all is doomed, go hang yourself. I think with like existential philosophy, you have like sort of more of a fighting chance. And another thing I've noticed like very recently, in the decades since I've written this, I've gone into like bookstores, And I've seen like volumes like in the philosophy section. There's a whole series now, like pop culture and philosophy. I don't know if you've seen this, but there's like a whole series book, The Simpsons and Philosophy, 24 in Philosophy, The Matrix and Philosophy. Yeah, they're there. Go check them out. And I think that's a good way to like, for people to get into philosophy. And like some of these like have to do with ethics. It's not all existential, but it has to do with like ethics and metaphysics. What the world is ultimately about. But they're anthologies with people who have advanced degrees in philosophy contribute to these volumes. And I wish I could remember more of the titles, like Batman and Philosophy. Let's see, I mentioned 24, but and The Matrix. There's just a few of them, but I think it's called the Blackwell Pop Culture and Philosophy series. And I've read a few of them. They're very, very interesting. But the thing that makes me like about this, it makes me like feel like pretty pleased with myself, is that I'm pretty sure I invented the genre, because I know nothing like it prior to like 1974 when I wrote this. So I mean, certainly by no means. I mean, there are other people now with advanced degrees who do this sort of thing far, far better than I ever could have hoped to. But first is first. So even though I wrote it when I was a kid, I'm like still pretty proud of it after all these years. And like, I'm glad it sort of like inspired other people to do like further work of this type. So maybe I should open this up to questions. I don't know. Oh yeah. Oh, anybody? Well, okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah. So you talked a little bit about having to publish this in AMRA in with all the DeCamp material that was coming out.
Yeah.
Do you feel that DeCamp's view of Conan, which is very focused on the chronology, and I would argue like an increase of meaning in his life as he increases in power and stature going towards the kingship, would you argue that it's explicitly non-existentialist, like that it sort of refutes Howard's point of view that he has in the stories?
Sorry, could you repeat the question so everybody can hear?
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry about that.
I said, does he believe that DeCamp's point of view of Conan, which posits that Conan accrues more meaning in his life as he increases in power and stature and becomes the king of Babylonia? The camp view is very focused on the chronology of his adventures and that kind of thing. If that's explicitly non-existentialist and sort of in opposition to Howard in that way.
Oh yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. It definitely is. Like, if you remember, like the story that like the phoenix on the sword, it has like the sage, like Epimetheus, and in that terrific novel Conan of the Isles, like DeCamp and Carter bring Epimetheus back. And he like comes to Conan in a dream or vision or something. I only read it once, so I don't remember exactly. But he's like telling Conan like, "Oh, you are so awesome, Conan. You're the real deal. Like, long have the gods watched you and marked you for great and terrific and noble deeds and so on and so forth." And even they're like, no, that's wrong. He just like, Conan, he just like blazed his own trail. I mean, like everyone knows like the term trailblazing, which means like pioneering in some respect, but pioneers who blazed the first trail, I mean, they went where, nothing existed. Like not even like an animal path. They just like looked at it like a solid wall of trees and brush, and they picked a point at random and said, "I guess we'll start there," and they just started hacking away with axes and to get through it, and that's and made a pathway that others subsequently used, and that's like really trailblazing. And That's what like Howard and Conan did. They had like really like they're really striking out in like a very like original direction where like no one has gone before. Like whereas like he was looking forward, whereas like DeCamp and Carter, who came after them, were still looking backward. Seeing like Conan is like essentially like like Odysseus or Hercules or Perseus in a new getup, which he definitely wasn't, because like in the Greek myths, you have the gods interfering constantly, and they give him magical weapons and they do this and that for the hero, and Howard wasn't having any of that because he knew it wouldn't play well with modern readers reading new fiction, like about a fantasy character, which is why I call his work, like instead of sword and sorcery, I use the term modern heroic fantasy, because it was like, he has the swordsmen and the sorcerers and the monsters and so forth, but the attitude is very fresh and modern. Okay, any other questions? Yes?
So, in regards specifically to the novel, The Hour of the Dragon, which Howard wrote very much almost as a response to the Arthur mythos, the Grail cycle, do you have any thoughts on how his take on that is informed by Conan as a self-deterministic hero?
I like the novel The Hour of the Dragon very much, because like Howard introduced like Conan as a king, and frankly his presentation of it in the Phoenix on the Sword was like embryonic in certain sense. In subsequent stories, he like was like sort of like filling in the backstory, like he told like Lovecraft or something. This new one is a tale of Conan before he came to the kingship, and step by step, he like sort of got away from that whole king concept and re-envisioned Conan and as the Conan we all know and love, the swaggering, like barbaric adventurer, and a bit of a rogue, bit of an outlaw, tough, edgy, dangerous. And then with Hour of the Dragon, he came back to Conan, as king, only informed by all those other adventures like People of the Black Circle and Devil and Iron and Tower of the Elephant, and he reconciled those two elements with like Conan in a position of great responsibility, but there's one point where like somebody says to Conan like, well, why bother trying to get Aquilonia back? I mean, there's civil wars in Gara, there's trouble here and there. You can head south with like the armies of Pointaine. We could like forge an empire. And I think the Passage Howard Road that comes after that is like kind of sort of thinking like, well, why not? Maybe. And Howard wrote, so the ghost. I'm trying to quote this as well as I can. So the ghost of his wild and lawless past whispered to him. Like back in the Phoenix, I saw that wild and lawless past wasn't fully realized, but by the time he wrote The Hour of the Dragon, it was. And there he said, but ultimately he says, no, I'll rule all of Aquilonia or nothing. So, which, when Conan is responsible for others, he does rise to the occasion. Hour of the Dragon is a book worth this is sort of an aside. It's a book worth like rereading many times because it gets better as you get older, and because like Conan's on top of the world. He's king of Aquilonia. He's made it, and Hour of the Dragon, it opens with him getting knocked into this big hole and having to like spend the rest of the book clawing his way out of it. And I reread it like shortly after I got like downsides out of publishing, and it helped a lot. It helped me keep me going. So it's so it is one of those one of Howard's works that you know it gets better every time you read it because you're older every time you read it.